Donald Trump can spin the block all he wants, but there's no reason for us to ever get back together.
President Donald Trump is facing some flack from Swifties, Taylor Swift fans, after posting images on social media alluding to the pop star's endorsement.
Boston Herald reports, along with boyfriend Connor Kennedy, Taylor Swift crashed a Kennedy family wedding in Boston over the weekend. This is really bizarre.
God, you know, I love American politics, bro. Like, there is truly nothing wrong with the culture at large at all. Like, not even a little bit. Let me take you back to a date that now seems so far in all of our minds collectively. Last Thursday, the last day of the DNC. For those who are not from the great US of A, the Democratic National Convention happens every election cycle, and basically, a bunch of important politicians and sometimes also celebrities convene in one place, and they formally nominate their party's presidential nominee. And in this case, the Democrats, of course, nominated Kamala Harris after Joe Biden, who was our president for 4 years, decided not to seek re-election. This convention process is usually several days long, with the nominees speaking on the last day, and the last day of the DNC had a higher viewership than normal because there were rumors of a mystery speaker that was at the DNC who was supposedly going to either come out and perform or endorse Kamala Harris or both, and the Democrats themselves weren't actively fanning the flames of those rumors necessarily, but they weren't denying anything either. TMZ ended up confirming, quote unquote, that Beyonce was supposed to perform and endorse Kamala Harris before she took the stage. There were also rumors that Taylor Swift was going to come perform and endorse Kamala Harris before she took the stage. There were rumors that both of them were going to come and perform together and endorse Kamala Harris before she took the stage, and then Welcome to the Black Parade was going to start playing, and then Dan and Phil would come out and wave the gay flag. And then neither of these things happened. Kamala Harris took the stage and she spoke and she accepted the nomination and balloons and confetti, and we're done. And I just can't get over how weird that was. And not only how weird that was, but also why, after everything we've been through, people are so obsessed with celebrity presidential endorsements in 2024. And obviously, by the title and thumbnail, the Taylor Swift conversation in particular is the most interesting to me, and quite frankly is getting more batshit insane by the day. And researching this topic has brought me down memory lane. For example, remember when Trump said that there was no way Taylor Swift could endorse Biden and be disloyal to the man who made her so much money? Well, he clearly just shared AI-generated images of Taylor Swift and her fans endorsing Trump, and one of them literally says satire. Ground News found that nearly 200 articles have covered this situation so far, but barely any of that coverage is coming from the right. So I'm sorting these articles by their outlet's political bias to see the full spectrum of reactions. It looks like right-leaning sources seem pretty straightforward with their reporting, while the left adds way more color, writing that Trump has clearly lost his mind, asking a lawyer what type of action Taylor Swift should take, and even how this stunt is highlighting a new era of election disinformation. And with the US election just around the corner, and some politicians willing to do and say anything for votes, it's really important now more than ever to know where our information is coming from and how credible it actually is. And that's why I am so excited to once again partner with our friends at Ground News for today's video. Ground News is an app and website that gather related articles from around the world in one place so you can compare how different outlets cover the same story with the context on their political bias, credibility, and even who funds them. You can even search that hot take you found on social media in their app for a full range of perspectives on the issue. My favorite feature at the moment, though, is their blind spot feed, where you'll find more important stories that the right or left aren't covering. And I know some of you guys know this, but when I'm not being a content creator and talking to you in a camera about pop culture stuff, I am actually a working journalist, working with a lot of other really talented people to bring you news about a really intense election cycle, and I know firsthand how important it is to be informed about this stuff. I really think that Ground News is a wonderful tool that can help you debunk misinformation during this really chaotic time, and can help you check your own subconscious biases. So go to ground.news/Kayla Says or scan my QR code to download the Ground News app and get a free trial. Show your support for an independent company bringing back transparency in the media, one article at a time. And once again, thank you so much to our friends at Ground News for sponsoring sponsoring today's video. Okay, so the Taylor Swift political discourse has been a thing for quite some time. I've talked about this in other videos before, but it's my personal opinion that if given the option, Taylor Swift would likely remain apolitical at all costs as a means of not alienating any part of her fan base. However, that strategy often operates as a double-edged sword for most famous people because if you don't give a definitive stance on the issue, it may be interpreted by some folks maliciously or otherwise as an endorsement of like the opposite thing. So for example, a couple of election cycles ago, this was like the pre-Lover era, there were white supremacists online co-opting Taylor Swift's image and, praising her as the theoretical goddess of the Aryan race, and closely associating her name with white supremacy, which led her to speak out against Donald Trump, and of course in 2020, she did end up endorsing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris with the famous cookies post. And a week or two ago, people started speculating that the same exact thing was going to happen again, because Donald Trump decided to post AI images using Taylor Swift's likeness to his own social media, in which it was heavily implied that she and her fans were endorsing him. Now obviously, you and I have two eyeballs and a brain, and you can decipher that this is AI slop garbage. However, for the lead poison boomers on Facebook who have not caught up with that yet, this could have some rather disastrous implications. And so a lot of people were like, oh my god, this is it. Taylor Swift, who has particularly been very litigious in the past over stuff like this, is going to nail Donald Trump into the ground by suing him into oblivion, and he's gonna lose more money than he already has, and she's gonna endorse Kamala Harris, and it's gonna be great. And then, nothing. She hasn't really said anything about it. And I've heard some people say that like, oh, there's not a lot of legal grounds for her to sue here because AI is so new. But I don't know if you guys remember, like a year or so ago, there were AI images of Taylor Swift that were circulating on X, and some of them were a little nefarious in nature, and Elon had to wipe that off the site real quick. I remember that. If you look up Taylor Swift AI on X or Twitter right now, nothing will come up. And like, sure, maybe her legal team is working on stuff behind the scenes right now, but it is interesting that this is a situation where Donald Trump literally kind of set her up to endorse the other candidate as a means of setting the record straight and not letting this rampant misinformation run wild online. And there just hasn't been anything, which I think is why some people were building up this DNC mystery speaker as like this fanficky triumphant sort of moment where Taylor Swift comes out, and that's like the final checkmate to the Donald Trump campaign, and it doesn't seem like things are going that way. And this shouldn't be all that important in the grand scheme of things, but that vacuum, that absence, that lack of a statement has led to people on both sides of the aisle just like completely making shit up. In the past 24 hours alone, I've seen rumors that, The Sun in particular is running with that Taylor Swift is going to endorse Kamala Harris, just, a little bit closer to the election. I've seen rumors that she blasted Donald Trump on Twitter after this AI debacle, and most people are referring to the last time that she mentioned Donald Trump on Twitter, or a statement that is completely fake. Alternatively, on the other side, there are people who are running with fake statements about how Taylor Swift actually has endorsed Trump outside of the AI situation. And again, for media literate people who understand fake news and AI, this isn't a big deal. However, what I'm more worried about is groups of people who could easily be mass manipulated if they don't know what to look out for, because those people also vote. Now, the lack of a concrete statement here, like I said, has allowed misinformation to run wild, but it has also allowed for some educated inferencing on who Taylor Swift is supporting in this day and age based on all of the football players in her orbit. And that's not the best metric of political ideology, I don't think. I feel like this one is sort of an unexpected arc because I made a video about this back in February, right before the Super Bowl, where there were a bunch of conservatives who were proselytizing about this conspiracy theory that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift were going to endorse Joe Biden after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. And the reason at the time that they thought this was because at some point in time, Travis Kelce was involved in a campaign for the COVID vaccine. And I guess the logical leap there was Travis Kelce, COVID vax, Joe Biden, Taylor Swift. This is what's happening. Obviously that didn't happen, and we don't know Travis Kelce's political views, and I don't think anybody gives a shit, but obviously in the last year or so, Taylor Swift has been keeping the company of Travis Kelce's teammates, who have been more outspokenly conservative. A conservative NFL player? Groundbreaking, truly. But in all seriousness, one of the Chiefs kickers, Harrison Butker, came under fire earlier this year because he made sexist comments in a graduation speech, and aligns himself with the trad wife lifestyle, I guess. And more recently, Brittany Mahomes, who Taylor Swift is friends with and is, the wife of the quarterback Patrick Mahomes, was seen liking some pro-Trump stuff on social media. So now there are people being like, well, Taylor and Travis are friends with all of these conservatives, so therefore they're obviously not going to come out and endorse Kamala. And like, I hate to break it to you guys, but I don't think they talk about that stuff because they're too wealthy for any of it to truly affect them. Not to use this topic as an excuse to talk about my favorite show on Maine, but if you've ever seen Succession, the whole point of that show is that the characters are driven by like their own trivial interpersonal bullshit because they're so wealthy that nothing can actually materially impact them. So like, I don't think they're up there in Rhode Island yapping about the state of the world. I think they're up there yapping about like the most bizarre potential baby name list you've ever heard in your life, and Maddie Healy. Now, before we unpack the power of celebrity culture and ultimately why any of this matters, I have to talk about something that I came across like while researching this video. Did you guys know about like the Taylor Swift Kennedy family subplot that's been going on for like the last 10 years? Okay, so I didn't know this until very recently, but apparently Taylor Swift at one point had an obsession with the Kennedy family. For those of you not from the US, the Kennedys are a long-time political dynasty here in America. Taylor Swift has apparently gone on record for her love of the famous family, and according to this thread, has even been spotted making an impromptu visit to the graves of John and Bobby Kennedy. When Taylor Swift was 22, she reportedly had a brief fling with Patrick Schwarzenegger, who was a part of the Kennedy family, and then she started dating Patrick's 17-year-old cousin, Connor, who is the son of RFK. Again, if you're not from the US, you might not know that RFK is one of the disgraced fail sons of the Kennedy family, who ran a third-party presidential campaign in order to try to spoil votes from the Democrats, but then he realized that according to polling, his candidacy was potentially taking away votes from the Republican Party this time around, and so he decided to suspend his campaign and endorse Donald Trump, and the two of them have been attending rallies and public events together as if they are the presidential ticket, and Donald Trump didn't actually pick a different running mate who's like embarrassingly bad at being a guy. In the grand scheme of things, this has nothing to do with anything. I just thought it was super fascinating. Like, I can guarantee that regardless of what Taylor Swift's politics actually are, she is definitely not ideologically in line with RFK. But it is really interesting that she at one point was like weirdly obsessed with the Kennedys. Girl, what the fuck? Okay, and now we get to my favorite part. Why does any of this actually matter? Because here's the thing. Celebrity endorsements haven't really mattered for quite some time now. And most of the time, regardless of which celebrities speak out about politics or not, you can kinda assume what side they fall on ideologically. For example, even though Beyonce didn't come out and endorse Kamala Harris or perform right before her speech at the DNC, we all know that Beyonce supports Kamala Harris based on the fact that she allowed her to use her song Freedom on the campaign trail and issued a cease and desist to Donald Trump for doing the same thing. And even when these whole DNC last night rumors were spreading, most people, expected Beyonce to be there once that rumor was kind of really being pushed by TMZ. But there were a lot of people from what I saw who were way more excited about the prospect of Taylor being there. And I guess it's because Taylor Swift has such a massive reach of influence at this point. Not that Beyonce doesn't, but it's so interesting to me that as of late, both parties have been acting like if they get the coveted Taylor Swift endorsement, they win. They win the culture war. And I know this, based on the fact that Donald Trump went out of his way to post an AI version of her endorsing him. You can sit there and say that in the grand scheme of things, celebrity culture doesn't matter when it comes to the election cycle, but both campaigns are operating as if that is not the case. I've also seen the argument that Taylor Swift's influence is so massive and so prominent that it's actually a security risk for her to publicly endorse anybody in a political election cycle. A lot of people pointing to the fact that during the European leg of the Eras Tour, one of the concerts had to get canceled due to a potential terrorist threat. And so therefore, I guess it would make sense that Taylor Swift's theoretical endorsement of Kamala Harris would come during her October-September break. Is that just cope? Who's to say? I think this all comes back to the fact that fans who form deep parasocial bonds with these celebrities really want their idols to align ideologically with what they value. It's not enough that they, make good music. In this day and age, celebrities operate as an extension of who their fans are. And in the case of Taylor Swift, a lot of her fans are young, liberal, white women who insist that her silence must be for a reason and not simply because she's apathetic. And, it's interesting to me who people ultimately choose to give that grace to. Do I think that Taylor Swift is going to endorse Kamala Harris? Probably. Do I think that people are going to totally overblow the significance of that? Yes. And do I wish that celebrities would use their voices and powerful influence for other things sometimes? Yeah. But regardless of all that, this is the world that we live in now, and it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens next. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. A reminder that you can connect with me at all the social media listed in this beautiful link tree, which can be found, of course, in the description down below. Another reminder that you can connect with me on Patreon, where I am posting weekly bonus content for just $2 a month. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.
Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys! Wow!